Hey everyone, Gill Gross here, post-match. Carlos Alcaraz versus Stefanos Tsitsipas and Jannik Sinner versus Grigor Dimitrov, Roland Garros 2024 quarterfinals. If you're not here for spoilers, click off the video. We're going to get into both. I'll go a little bit longer on Alcaraz Tsitsipas, keep it short, simple, sweet on Sinner Dimitrov, but at the end of the day, they were kind of similar. Straight set matches. Two-handed backhands conquer the one-handed backhands. We'll be talking about a lot of those themes. And yeah, it was an interesting quarterfinal day as far as those two matches are concerned because they did sort of mirror each other, but don't worry, it's not the same to the point where you won't be hearing me give the same analysis twice. So again, Alcaraz Tsitsipas to start. I want to go kind of against the grain here. This is not about the backhand. I think sometimes the mental aspect of this matchup for Tsitsipas is worse than the tactical aspect of this matchup, that it's a lot easier to harp on because you have something pretty obvious that goes on tactically time and time again. But if I look at some of the crucial moments in this match, particularly the times that Tsitsipas got his serve broken, it's not all on the backhand. In some cases, it's not really that much on the backhand at all. Steph had some serious execution issues in this match, even on his strengths, the stuff he's supposed to do well: serve, forehand, net play. I didn't find his serve or his forehand to be particularly effective weapons all through the first set. I just didn't think they were working very well. Second set, let's look at the break of serve at Love 1. He missed two overheads in a row. He missed a +1 forehand, and then he missed a neutral ball backhand at Love 40, the last point of the game. So that's one on the backhand, but he missed two overheads in a row and a forehand. Third set, 3-all. That's another break serve. Now, I think Alcaraz played two great points here. Two excellent points on return. The other 2 points were double faults. Steph double faulted twice in one game. That's not the backhand. So I just want to point that out because sometimes, and I actually think if you look at the last 3 times they've played, and now it's a 6-0 lead for Alcaraz in the head-to-head, the last 3 times they've played, Tsitsipas hasn't done all that much well. So you can look at the backhand and just focus on that and be like, that's the end of the story. That's the only thing that's happening. I disagree with that because I think Steph, although this one was better than the last 2, than the previous 2 in 2023, Steph has not showed up and played his sharpest, most consistent match, even when it comes to things that he's really, really good at against Alcaraz. And, why do I say that is a mental thing? I thought about going into depth about some theories I might have about what's happening psychologically, but I'm going to actually refrain from playing armchair psychologist. What I will say is the entire basis of the mental game is, does your mind give your body the ability to perform to the maximum of its potential? That's what it's all about. And I just feel like the last 3 times Tsitsipas has played Alcaraz, he has not performed to his maximum potential. I mean, that's what this book, The Inner Game of Tennis, is all about. How to get your mind, not to make you play better than you're able to, because at the end of the day, that's impossible, but your mind can allow your body to do what it's best at, and that's play world-class tennis. Anyway, now I'll get to the weakness. Now I'll talk to the backhand, or I'll speak to the backhand. First thing I want to say is the kick serve, Alcaraz's kick serve to Tsitsipas's backhand, being as effective as it is a huge problem. It's more problematic than a lot of other kind of serve return dynamics that I've seen over the years, particularly because that's a viable second serve. Like if Alcaraz wants to hit that as his second serve, he can do it every time, no problem. And it's one thing if there's a particular first serve that is giving somebody trouble in a tennis match. Well, at least you can hope for them to miss that. But when you can hit it on first or second, you see how that's a massive problem. So Alcaraz won 74% of his second serve points in this match. And that's because his most effective serve in the matchup is a viable second serve that he can hit over and over again without double faulting. And by the way, Same thing on the first serve, where because that serve is so reliable because of the fact that it has tons of topspin and it bites down into the court, it's also a super reliable first serve, which drives up the first serve percentage and makes it more likely that on a big point, you have a first serve that you're going to make if you go for it. And it's even more effective on the first than the second serve because Tsitsipas can't really cheat at all. He still has to account for the bigger, faster serve to his forehand side. Where on the second serve, at least he can cheat there a little bit, but even that wasn't all that helpful. So I think that's a big issue. And then, the net rushing at moments stood out to me by Alcaraz. So the stats for Alcaraz at net as a whole aren't actually all that great. But he came in on Tsitsipas's backhand a decent amount. And I just want to say, I don't ever remember him getting passed. I just don't remember it. There was some serve and volley to Steph's backhand. There were some, when Alcaraz had a short ball on the backhand, I think his go-to play was to hit a backhand cross-court approach. And yeah, I just don't remember Tsitsipas ever hitting a passing shot with his one-hander. So that's a factor. And back to kind of my first point about performance and execution beyond the limitations of Tsitsipas's technical capabilities. One thing that I think Tsitsipas is usually pretty good about on the backhand side is not missing neutral balls from stationary positions. I mean, it has happened sometimes in his career. There have been matches, especially under pressure, where I feel like it's cost him. But more often than not, if Tsitsipas isn't moving and isn't rushed and he's hitting a one-hander from the back of the court, it's not like super unreliable and erratic. But I thought he did actually miss a lot of neutral backhands in this match. Way too many. Regular backhand ground stroke errors were 12-3. Tsitsipas made 12. Alcaraz made 3. Really paints the picture there. This was also a really discouraging night for Tsitsipas's backhand return as a whole. Here's why. From his perspective, you are playing on a cool night on clay. So cold temperatures on a clay court. You are facing a server who isn't very precise. This is not Jan-Lennard Struff, who's going to be picking corners. This is Alcaraz. The serves are going to be a lot in the middle of the box. And lastly, you generally know where the serve is going. Alcaraz hit on the ad side 90% of his first serves out wide. You know where it's going. So slow conditions, imprecise server, predictable. You should have a solid return performance based on those factors. Yet, Alcaraz hit 27 service winners. Tsitsipas hit 16. So Steph only making 72% of his total returns. It's not ideal given the factors that we just went through. And that doesn't account for all of the returns that he's making in the court, but he's putting softly into the kill zone for the best pace-generating forehand on the tour in Carlos Alcaraz. And that's where he gets into trouble when he goes to the block return. Like, the block return against Alcaraz is not really an option. Now, maybe if you were like as precise with it or as skillful with it as Federer, you could keep it low and short enough to make it work. That's not Tsitsipas. He does not have that dexterity on the slice with his continental grip, and not even close. So what does the block return do? Well, it takes pace off. It gives you time to recover, but it's not rushing. And Alcaraz is too good a pace generator on his forehand to get away with floating block returns deep into the court. It's the same thing with Nadal. Sometimes you run into a pace generator who's too good, and there will be kind of a theme. I'll get back to that with Sinner and Dimitrov as well. He tried the more aggressive position. That's where he misses a lot of returns. And then his best return position by far was deep in the court, which I wish he would just stick with. And yes, it opens up Tsitsipas to the serve and volley. Certainly Alcaraz can serve and volley to Steph's backhand, and there is kind of an issue there. But I still think if you're looking at the percentages, it's better to make Alcaraz do that than to stand up on the court and block, or to stand up on the court and try to drive it and just miss a bunch of returns. That's just my 2 cents. But there really isn't a return position that Tsitsipas can implement that is bulletproof. And there were egregious moments in this match in the clutch where Tsitsipas's backhand return came up short. But the most egregious by far was when Alcaraz was serving for the match at 5-4 in the third set, and Steph had the benefit of finish line pressure because Alcaraz started this game with 2 wild forehand unforced errors in a row. Love 30 second serve. Tsitsipas misses a second return wide. Wide. Don't miss wide on that. Your opponent has just made 2 sloppy unforced errors. The target on the return when you're hitting a backhand, it's one thing if he missed wide on a forehand. The forehand is an awesome weapon. If you want to be aggressive on the return, go for it. But man, just hit a deep backhand return up the middle and look for a forehand. Like, that's obviously the percentage play there. And arguably, you should rarely miss second serve returns wide. Next point, Alcaraz moves to the wide service position on the ad side. Tsitsipas moves over 2, knowing that it's probably a kick serve out wide. It is a kick serve out wide, and Tsitsipas still misses the backhand return. Next point, 30 all, serve to the backhand. Tsitsipas misses another backhand return. This one at least missed just a hair long, so it wasn't as bad a miss. Then on match point, it's one of those where the backhand return, it wasn't struck cleanly, but it did go in. Soft enough for Alcaraz to attack with the forehand down the line to push Tsitsipas back. Forehand drop shot after that. Winner, game, set, match. So I'll move on from the return now. Let me compliment Alcaraz a little bit because I know I've focused on Tsitsipas. I continue to think that he's playing with really good discipline. I've liked his shot selection at this tournament. It's been very sound, in my opinion. To me, the MVP of his performance tonight, other than the serve, which was very tactical, it was very effective. He continuously executed the serves that he wanted to execute, but to me, that's his comfort zone. Alcaraz has always had a kick serve, and that's his comfort zone. To me, the MVP of the match was Alcaraz's forehand defense. Tsitsipas loves his forehand inside in. He loves it for 2 reasons. One, it's very damaging. It takes time away, right, because it's a down the line. So the ball doesn't need to travel as far to get past the threshold of, the player on the other side of the net. But I think one of the other really big factors here is when Tsitsipas hits his forehand inside in, he puts the rally back on his forehand because usually the forehand defense is going to go cross. Alcaraz hit the running forehand off of Tsitsipas's forehand inside in so well. He was constantly turning the point around, and he did not always go cross court on it, which, by the way, used to be in the scouting report on Alcaraz. It used to be that on his running forehand, he just always kind of went cross, which wasn't like super exploitable because most players go cross, but Sinner exploited it a lot. He'd go backhand down the line, and then he would basically cheat to his right, get the forehand cross. Oftentimes, a lot of topspin, land short, and then Sinner would crush a forehand line. Anyway, Alcaraz defended his forehand in that pattern super, super well. Tsitsipas' conclusion, the serve and forehand did pick up in sets 2 and 3. It was a more energetic performance than we saw last year. I will take that away as a positive. The best thing he did in the match by far was get to the net, so he wasn't kind of stuck in the back of the court hitting backhands too often. I think Steph needs to take that part of his performance and copy-paste it to the next time he plays Alcaraz. But there's just a lot of things that need to get better in order for him to win next time. And frankly, I didn't love what he said after the match. And this is brutal honesty on my part that, I might have lost it. I had it up on my phone. Let me try to pull it up. I hesitate to be critical like this, but I'm going to give you my unvarnished thoughts. What Tsitsipas says is, quote, "I was pretty sure I could face Carlos today and do something different, but the kid is just too good. He's really playing amazing. When I play against him, I get reminded of how much there is to get better at." I don't love that sentiment. I would rather him be a little bit pissed off that he didn't play better instead of, yeah, he just played so well, too good, unbeatable. And if a young player says that, right, if a player who is still 20, 21, 22, maybe even says like, yeah, it just reminds me of how much better I need to get, then I'm kind of like, okay, like you understand what stage of your career you're at. I'm not saying Tsitsipas still can't get better. I would just like him to have a little bit more bravado in this situation and back himself a little bit more ideally. Maybe he's just being a realist here, but maybe he needs to be a little bit less rational and tell himself, I am good enough to win. I just need to play better. And personally, I would be more confident. All I'm saying is this. I would be more confident in Tsitsipas beating Alcaraz the next time if that was kind of the vibe I was getting from him. Instead of like, damn, this Carlitos guy, crazy good. I mean, I don't know what to do. Like, that's the vibe right now, which is not really what you're looking for. Okay, let's go to Sinner versus Dimitrov. So I had a hypothesis coming into the match about the Miami Open match that Sinner played, or sorry, Sinner played Dimitrov in, which was 6-1, 6-3? Yeah, 6-3, 6-1. I looked at that match. It's not that I thought it was going to be even worse than that, because that's pretty bad, but I did think a lot of the stuff that happened in that match, Clay is only going to make that worse, because Sinner's return and defense drags Dimitrov into way more baseline rallies than what he's comfortable with. And that's what happened in Miami on a really fast hard court. And he couldn't really come forward. He couldn't really finish with his forehand as efficiently as he usually does. And now I'm thinking, all right, so now they're going to do this on clay? Like, that's going to hurt Dimitrov in every way possible. And it did, because from there, after Sinner drags Dimitrov into a neutral rally, the plan is to play very clean and consistent while directing traffic to the backhand. Sinner likes to counterpunch a little bit against Dimitrov. Let Grigor attack him, absorb, counter, and get those errors. That's what he likes to do. How did he do? Well, Sinner only made 20 unforced errors. That's less than 7 per set. Dimitrov made 49 unforced errors. That's more than 16 per set. And then if you look at remember the second piece of it, not only am I going to stay really consistent, I'm going to just make him hit a lot of backhands. Well, Dimitrov hit 187 backhands to 144 forehands. That is not easy to do against a guy who runs around so much and serves so big. Believe me, every player in the world who plays Dimitrov would love him to hit more backhands than forehands. It's just a lot easier said than done. For Sinner, it's done. Let's get into some of those reasons why Sinner can do these things and others can't. Why can Sinner make Dimitrov hit so many backhands? Where's this from everybody else? Well, first of all, the pace and control out of his backhand corner. When Dimitrov has a right-hander pinned into the backhand corner, especially under pressure or on the run or slightly off balance, he is used to getting a ball that even when it goes cross-court, he has the time and space to run around and hit a forehand. But Sinner is just so strong out of the backhand corner. It's faster. It's deeper. It's more precise and closer to the sideline. And now Dimitrov has to hit a backhand. So just the sheer quality out of the backhand corner on the cross court. Then for Jannik, there's the ability to redirect the forehand down the line safely. He's a master at this. He plays his forehand down the line as a pattern changer all the time, and he does it extremely well. Watch how, if you go back and you watch this, watch how many times he's hitting a forehand down the line, but he's not actually attacking. And that is because he has a tactical mindfulness, which is the third key. He doesn't get lulled into his programmed tactics. He never forgets who he's playing against. This happens more often than you'd think on the court to players at all levels, where you forget who you're playing against and you start just playing your game, and then you lose your tactics. So those are, I think, the three keys. But I will say, none of this matters. None of this matters if you can't return and defend well enough to get past Dimitrov's serve +1. I called Dimitrov's match against Fabian Marozsan. And most of Grigor's service points were were over in 3 shots when Dimitrov made a first serve. Usually Marozsan couldn't even make Dimitrov have to hit 2 ground strokes after his serve. That's how dominant the serve plus 1 is. So Sinner, being just an elite returner, a more neutralizing returner, and a better mover and a better defender, he survives that serve plus 1 sequence much better than most. I think the backhand, going back to clay versus Miami, I think the backhand is a larger issue on clay for Dimitrov than the other surfaces. So first there's the slice thing, and this goes back to the pace absorption thing that I was just talking about. I think Sinner is too good at dictating off of slice on this surface because it doesn't bite through the court. It doesn't skid through the court. On clay, slice, it checks. You know what I mean? Like, it doesn't skid, it checks. It slows down. It stops. The ball almost stops. So in that sense, slice can still be effective on clay. But against the 99th percentile of pace generators, you're giving them too much time. They're not going to have a problem with the low contact point getting the ball up and down. And if they hit a backhand, that's one thing. But if they hit a forehand, I think they can hit right through you. And Sinner, what was he doing? He was running around the Dimitrov backhand slice cross court all the time. Now, you could say, okay, Dimitrov just should drive all of his backhands. Well, then there's another problem. It becomes the least consistent ground stroke on court. And that is the whole point of what Sinner's philosophy is in this matchup, or what his coach's philosophies are. The philosophy is drag him into rallies, make him hit a lot of backhands, and we're going to win the game of errors. And because Dimitrov's backhand is the least consistent ground stroke on the court, it allows that to happen. And by the way, the height makes it harder. The higher the ball is bouncing, it's going to bounce higher on the clay than it would in Miami, the worse it's going to get. I'll also add that the money pattern for Sinner here, the pattern that I saw him get into and win what felt like 70% of the time, was hitting inside-out forehands into Dimitrov's backhand, because Grigor cannot get out of the jail. He just can't. Now, Sinner was leaving the backhand down the line open. He was literally hitting inside-out forehands and standing there and saying, take that inside-out forehand and try to drive the ball down the line. I dare you. I dare you to try it. Sometimes Dimitrov tried it. He just didn't really make it. Like, he hit one backhand down the line winner. Now, the third set, I'll admit, I was a little bit preoccupied, but I think through the first 2 sets, he hit one backhand down the line winner. So Sinner was daring him to go for that. He just can't really hit it at a high percentage. So conclusions, Dimitrov should feel proud of this week, and I don't think there's much he could have done in this matchup, but the one thing is his attacking forehand could have been better. He definitely missed more attacking forehands than he can afford to miss, and that's one area where I think he'll regret his performance. Other than that, just too good from Jannik. Sinner with another dynamite performance that should have him feeling very ready for Carlos Alcaraz. Semifinal preview will come after tomorrow. Hope you enjoyed. Don't forget to subscribe. I'll see you next time.